Hello and welcome to part 4 of this video demo series on Chapter 9 of the Server Virtualization course. So far we've talked about what the virtual desktop infrastructure is, the kinds of problems it was intended to solve, the way it evolved from to revive or to reintroduce an older form of computing. We've also talked about the challenges that solution to those problems in turn presents to us. Now we're going to talk about the two primary ecosystems by which we are most likely to build this out. One of these is the VMware family of products, VMware Horizon running on top of vCenter, running managing ESXi or vSphere hosts. The other option is the Microsoft Virtual Desktop Infrastructure using Hyper-V and Microsoft servers running Hyper-V, or directly configured Hyper-V servers, because you can either run Hyper-V as a Type 2 inside server, or you can literally build out Hyper-V servers which function more like Type 1 ESXi hosts than, say, Hyper-V running inside Windows 10. Now, these two families of products have similar features, concepts, components. The VMware stuff is brand new to us. Now, a lot of the underlying concepts we already understand. How a VMware data center is built, how we manage it with vCenter and things like that. The Microsoft side of the house might be a little bit more familiar to it. We kind of covered this. You may have covered this a little bit in your server course, talking about remote desktop services. You may also have used remote desktop in the past as a user, because you can, with the right configurations, you can remotely attach to a physical computer using the remote desktop protocol RDP. You could also do that same thing with a virtual machine. And we've actually kind of seen that already in working with Hyper-V in the System Center. Because when you open a Hyper-V, particularly in System Center, it acts like you're making a remote desktop connection, even if you and the System Center and the VM are all sitting at the same computer. So I call all of this out for the sake of giving a little piece of advice as far as how to teach yourself new things. Because teaching yourself new things is going to be an ongoing concern for us in the IT business. Our technologies are always evolving. Sometimes they're evolving. Our needs in terms of knowledge and training are always evolving. Sometimes those needs, those technologies, that knowledge evolves sort of a linear progression from something you may already know. Say, learning Windows 2000 or XP or 7 or 8 or 10 after having learned Windows NT 4.0. On the other hand, sometimes you're learning something very, very different, say jumping from Windows NT platform all the way over to Linux. Now, whether you're learning something that is like what you knew before or very, very different from what you already know, the fact that you can make a meaningful comparison between A and B, or a meaningful contrast between A and B, allows you to teach yourself those new things more effectively, and also remind yourself of the things you already know. This is the same reason we advise y'all to not just listen, not just watch, read. Read the textbook. Of course, there's more in the textbook than I can put in these lecture videos. So the more ways you interact with this cognitively, reading, listening, watching, taking notes, writing things down, the tactile mechanical experience of writing down important things builds a different pathway in the brain, because you're not just involving the visual cortex and the temporal lobes, you're involving the motor cortex as well. So there's more involved in processing that information that builds those pathways in the brain. So that's my point. Take these facts, take the similarities and the differences, and use that information to help you take the old information, whatever it is you have, and use it to help you relate to the new information better. So on we go. So let's talk about Horizon 7. If I say Verizon, please forgive me. The V in VMware and the Horizon in Horizon kind of smashes itself together in my brain. We are not talking about mobile phones. Anyway, so the first section we're going to deal with, this is the next 3 videos approximately, is VMware Horizon 7. We're going to talk about the major components, the moving parts, and how these components add up to a simple virtual desktop infrastructure. Once you understand a small scale, you can understand a larger scale. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about in the 3 videos subsequent to that is the Microsoft virtual desktop infrastructure. Now, the VMware virtual desktop infrastructure is called Horizons, version 7. I believe it's been at 7 point something for a while now. So in the same time, it has taken us to go from Workstation 12 to Workstation 15.5.6, where we've gone from VMware Horizon 7 to 0.0 to 7.x. And when we get there, I will call out in more detail what version that is. I might actually have it in my notes already, but I haven't worked with that information enough to really retain it. Anyway, so that's Horizon. We call the Microsoft Virtual Desktop Infrastructure the VDI, Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. Now, this started with, in Windows Server 2008, with terminal services. This actually predates Server 2K8. There was something called terminal services back in the old days of Windows NT 4. But in those days, terminal services really meant you were tying to a physical machine, because particularly in the old days, in the Windows NT 4.0, I was studying that in the in the late 90s, year 2000. So, and this kind of virtualization has only become possible in the last 15 years. So sometime after 2005, 2007, etc. So the old way was literally to use terminal services to tie into a remote machine, and your local machine really did kind of become a terminal to that remote machine. That terminal services have now become session virtualization. Now, if you take session virtualization with the virtual desktop infrastructure, you roll them together and you get remote desktop services, virtualized hosts in remote desktop services. And that's actually one of the available role services in remote desktop services. So you turn on the RDS, and one of the things you can do is a remote desktop virtualization host, essentially a Hyper-V platform for a virtualized remote desktop. So you're not remoting into a physical machine. You're remoting into a virtual machine, and then therefore, now if you remote into a physical machine, because particularly in Windows 7 and earlier, it's sort of a multi-user operating system, but not really. Linux has always been a bit more a bit better built as far as multiple user sessions concurrently was concerned. Even graphical concurrent remote user sessions. If you try to, say, log into a physical system remotely, and then there's someone sitting at the logged in physically, that physical login gets kicked out. It didn't handle it very well. And they may still have, even now, they may still have a limit on how many folks who can really be interacting with the kernel at the same time. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's the second set of 3 videos. And now, stick with me, and we will begin talking about Horizon and its components. So thanks for watching, and we'll be right back.